What's up, people? Hotep Jesus. We back. Got a very interesting conversation today. Defund the police. A lot of people are arguing about this. A lot of people are talking about it. Was going to go live on Twitter, but this is going to be a little bit longer than I wanted it to because the conversation is pretty deep. So let's start there. I see this conversation is quickly devolving into a left versus right dynamic. It's become dichotomous. And I think that's a failure. That's a failure. This conversation is way nuanced. It's way too nuanced for us to try to divide this up into left and right, conservative and liberal, progressive, etc. Democrat versus Republican. It's way too nuanced for that. Way, way, way too nuanced for that. There's a lot of details for this. You can't, I don't think you can just jump out the window and say, hey, defund the police or don't defund the police. I think to take a side has to come with conditions. So you can say, I am for defunding the police if, or you can say, I'm not for defunding police if. There has to be conditions to your statements. If you don't have any conditions, you're not actually thinking about this thing. This conversation is more about Americans versus the state. Is it McDouglas? McDougal? Was it McDouglas? What? Yeah, I think it was the McDouglas case. Uh, you guys can look this stuff up. I can't find it right now. No, it's not. It might not be that. But this comes off of the school shooting that happened in Florida. And that case went to the Supreme Court because people felt as though police didn't do a good enough job protecting them. And the police and the Supreme Court has decided that police are not obligated to protect people. And this is something that we know in the Hotep community. We've been talking about this for several years. My teachers, my ancestors have been saying this for several years, that police aren't meant to protect people. They're meant to protect property owned by the government and large corporations. They're not for people. And the Supreme Court has solidified that. In case you weren't aware, it is now public information. But we've known this. You know, the Hotep community have known that police aren't for people. You know, I tweeted a few weeks ago, I said, if you're concerned, if you leave your house and you see a police officer and you get nervous because you might get ticketed or something like that, then you're under the control of an oppressive regime. Police, in my opinion, shouldn't be here to ticket its citizens. I think it should be banned to ticket citizens of a city. Like, if I'm in this city, like, why are you ticketing me? You know, I can understand outsiders coming in and you may ticket them, but why are you ticketing me? So yeah, I in their speed traps, and then they have their surveillance cameras on the street lights and all this Big Brother stuff. So police aren't exactly a good thing. If you call yourself a conservative and you saw this topic, defund the police, pop up, I don't think you should be so apprehensive. You should be for this. Otherwise, you're a statist. If you're not for defunding the police, you're a statist. You believe in big gov and you believe in the state and you want to be oppressed by the state. You want to be under their regime. Conversation is way too nuanced. If you're conservative, you should be celebrating. If you're poor, maybe not. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But I think conservatives should be celebrating. One, you're going to get lower taxes, right? You don't have to pay taxes. Also, you get free market enterprise. This thing becomes capitalism. You're supposed to be pro-capitalism, right? So that means you'll get a choice of which police department you get. If you got one police department who uh, isn't meeting your needs or your satisfaction, hire a new one. It creates competition. This is going to stimulate a new economy. There'll be an economy of security. It'll stimulate the security economy, private police economy. And it should be a good thing for you. So I don't know why. Well, I know why conservatives are apprehensive, and we're going to talk about that right now. Let me check the chat real fast. Victor Life, thank you. He says, Hotep or die, Yatu Sabes. Real talk. Real talk. Hotep or die. Matthew Hunter, defunding the police doesn't get to the root of everything being criminal now. How about we have reform lawmakers and stop making everything criminal? Valid point. Drew Sample, sorry I've not been able to tune into a lot of Hotep's been told you. Can I wash your feet? Just kidding. The game plan definitely seems to be polarized and politicized. So let's get into the nuances of this conversation. If you're a black person of lower income, you're in this Black Lives Matter movement, and you think that defunding the police is going to change something for you, I don't think so. If we privatize police and one of your knuckleheads goes into a white community, you're still going to get a knee on your neck and you still going to get shot. You might get it even worse because these private police are going to be way more equipped than these donut eating, coffee drinking guys we got now who are way out of shape. You're going to get your ass kicked by somebody who's militarily trained and been waiting to kick your ass. Walking just walking into one of these neighborhoods, you're probably going to be harassed way more than with this public police if you say white people are evil. If you say white people are evil, the last thing you want to do is defund the police and let them privatize because now they're paying police to kick your ass. There's another contradiction here too is you can't say you're anti-capitalism and defund police because defunding police is going to lead to more capitalism. As I illustrated earlier, it's going to stimulate a private security economy, a private police economy, which is going to create a free market. It's going to create competition and more corporations. That's going to be the result of defunding the police. So you can't say you're anti-capitalist and defund police. Also, you can't be pro, what is it, gun control? Yeah. You can't be pro gun control and want to defund the police. I'm down to defund the police if I can open carry and conceal carry, and I don't need a permit to do so. I should be able to purchase a gun whenever I want, wherever I want. I should be able to have my AR-15 in my home, outside of my home, in my car, vehicle, whatever. I should be able to carry protection on my body in case something goes down. Because even as it is now, if we had police and, for example, if we look at Texas, when the gentleman walked into the church and I'm not sure if he opened fire or was about to open fire, but those white citizens of that church opened fire on his ass, and a lot of lives were saved. When we look at what happened in the black church with that white boy that walked in that black church and he shot all those people, nobody was armed in there. You see, police can only come after they've been called. They can't save you while you're getting robbed, threatened, or your ass kicked. But having a gun can. It can also deter people when they see, oh, he got a gun. Let's pick on somebody who doesn't have one. So I'm all for defunding the police if we can have guns. For the black community, we had private security. They came in the forms of Bloods and Crips. Now, for people who aren't aware, Bloods or blood stands for brotherly love overrides oppression and destruction. Blood wasn't meant to be bad. It meant to say, we share the same blood as cousins and brothers and sisters. So the Bloods originally, in their inception, I believe, branched off from the Black Panther movement. I could be wrong. I could be right. But that's what I believe happened. They came after. But these gangs, police are a gang too, but these gangs were initially meant to protect the community, to help young Black boys and girls live in a safe and productive community. Now, that was co opted with the help of the alphabet agencies. This is all documented. Uh, what these alphabet agencies basically did was incite violence between two rival factions who weren't actually rivals at the time. So what they do is, they'll shoot one individual and then spread a rumor and say, hey, the Bloods did this or the Crips did this. And now they're seeking revenge for their brother. And then that's how the war actually begun, and it started to devolve into what people might call a criminal organization. Now, when we talk about removing police presence, we have to look at Baltimore. I think Narcos on Netflix, or it might not be Narcos, but there's a Netflix series where they go into Baltimore and they talk to drug dealers and sex traffickers. And the drug dealers and sex traffickers said the Gray case was one of the best things that happened to him, because now they said that the police presence has to be decreased in some of these high crime areas. So sex trafficking has spiked, and so has drug abuse and drug dealing. So we can't say removing a police presence is going to be a good thing, because it damn sure ain't. Now, some people might say, hey, things are bad now with the police and, with the poor, so on and so forth. But even though it's bad now, there still is fear of consequence. There is still fear of consequence in a poor neighborhood to do something wrong, because there's the opportunity that police will come and arrest you and convict you. And we see it all the time. High incarceration rates. So we can't say that the police aren't coming after criminals or oppressing some people who aren't criminals. But to completely remove the police presence would, in fact, increase the crime. We need some sort of fear of consequence in there. Now, I'm all for defunding the police and creating privatization, uh, mostly out of selfish reasons. I have I'm chief operations officer of a artificial intelligence security company for residential and commercial businesses called Wazo AI. Currently, that website is wazosecurity.com. We'll be moving that shortly, though. But wazosecurity.com is where you can find information about our artificial intelligence security. But I'm happy. You guys want to privatize security? Great. You're going to make Hotep Jesus a rich man. You're going to make a lot of people rich. Um, my question is, when people like me or people that are affluent, your white, liberal, democratic, socialist allies, can afford the police, who's going to pay for the private security or the private police in a poor neighborhood? I know Black Lives Matter raised millions of dollars recently. We don't know where that money is going to go. But we know that there's this ability to crowd fund. Is your white liberal ally going to crowd fund an all black private police force? I'd love to speculate on that. I'd really love to speculate on that. Um, I'm very pessimistic about the positive outcomes, or the fact that they might even want to do that. See, these limousine liberals are going to have private police for them and nothing for you. It's to protect them from you. They don't really care about the black community when when the whole defunding police. They're going to mismanage this defund police initiative. It's going to be mismanaged by black and white liberals. We're going to see this devolve into something that's going to be bad. That I'm sure of. Anytime you give government an excuse to put their nose in stuff, it just seems to just get worse. So I'm not too convinced that that's going to be a good idea. Your white liberal allies are going to pay for security that are going to kick your ass, but they're going to be safe. I think that Jason Stapleton did a video on defund police, and I think he raised a great point. And he said that conservatives should hijack this conversation, join the conversation, because, like I said before, this is Americans versus the state. But they should hijack this conversation and steer defunding police into a direction that would benefit Americans and not socialists and communists. And I think that's a real good start for a solution. Hijack the conversation. If you're really conservatives, you shouldn't be for the state. You should be saying, I want my own private militia, like the good Caucasians out in Arizona who train in the desert. I'll tell you a quick story. I had a friend went out to Arizona, did his little camping thing. Of course, carry. So he had his weapon out there with him. And a gentleman, he heard in the background, a gentleman say, hey, please don't move. So the guy turns around and looks. He says, hey, don't move. The guy who's speaking to him brandishes his weapon to show him, hey, I am armed too. And he said, hey, look, just want to let you know we're out here training. As he says this, about 20 men appear out of nowhere from bushes and so on and so forth because they're camouflage. So these people are trained and ready. I think if you're going to have that type of approach, you should be all for defunding police. You can protect yourself. And that's the bigger issue here is being able to arm ourselves and protect ourselves and form our own corporations to secure us. The problem is the state wants to take away our guns and our ability to protect ourselves. So for me, I don't want to touch anything having to do with policies or government. I'm not a fan of the defund police hashtag because I'm looking into the future and seeing that conservatives are going to allow this conversation to devolve into a left versus right dynamic. They're not going to hijack it as they should. And therefore, the liberals and socialists are going to own this conversation and therefore make bad decisions when it comes to police policy. Somebody brought up how Camden, New Jersey, had some sort of police reform. I think the article was published maybe 6 years ago or something like that. But this year, published, Camden is top 10 in violence. You drive through Camden, it could be broad daylight in the summer. For some reason, when you drive through Camden, it turned dark. What Scar said to Simba, look over there. Never go over there. Yeah, he talk about Camden. But Camden is, I think, number 9 in violence, most dangerous cities in America. And I think they disbanded their police force, and now it's patrolled by officers who are paid half as much as the previous police force, and they have double the amount of cops in the area policed by the county. So when you say police policy, it's like they're just going to find another loophole to install another oppressive regime under a new system. That's why I don't like to say, hey, touch policy. Nah, I like to start at culture. Why your white liberals aren't paying for independent education? Why your white liberals don't want freedom of school choice? A lot of this you see, educated people tend to deal with less police brutality. I'm not saying that because you're educated, you're not going to deal with police brutality because you can, especially if you're black. But they tend to have less problems. People with money have less problems with police. But education is the key to all of this. Because when you're educated, you make better decisions even around the police. But how come your liberals don't want better education for you? How come they don't want you to be smart? They don't want you to be smart because you might stop voting for them. That's one thing. But that lets me know that they don't have your best interest in heart. How come they don't fund black business that creates great health? Because you can fund black business like, I don't know, a nail shop or a hair shop or a soda company. None of these things really help the black community. Why aren't they putting more money into black tech companies? Why the white liberal won't fund a black bank? Why do they want you to have that real power? See, they like to play in the lower realms of things like police policy, but they don't want to have that higher discussion to where real change occurs. What I think is the black community needs a change in culture. Our music, our music videos don't show a distinguished people. And I don't like to play what do they call it now? Not identity politics, but I don't know, some politics word the liberals made up about, if you're an upstanding individual, you should be, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, the imagery that we give our children isn't one that nourishes life and breeds education and speaks to education. It's a lot of debauchery, stripper culture. Right now, if you have a hip hop album and you wanted to get out there, it used to be back in the day you took it to the club. Nowadays, you got to take it to the strip club. That's where records really are moving right now, is in the strip club. You got to test it at the strip club. We throw millions of dollars in the strip club. And we've allowed our women to become sex trafficked. Sex trafficking. That's what it is. Sex trafficking. That culture is sex trafficking. When you have people who sex traffic themselves, why would you have anybody else respect you? Why would anybody else respect you when you don't respect your women? I think we have to change how we view ourselves first, and then we can worry about how other people view us next. But we have to push for a better culture, a better education. Now, I don't know if it should be Christianity or Islam or whatever, but believing in a higher power can help. Getting back to, if you're Christian, get back to your Bible. It's some wrong in there that's outdated, but it's a whole lot of right too. There's a whole lot of guidance in there too that tells you how to breed a good community. And we gotten away from some of those Bible tenets. The black community isn't as distinguished as it used to be. Back in the day, the women came out, the men dressed in three-piece suits, the women came out with their best, they had their hat on, and now everybody's just kind of like, I don't know, it look crazy, it look different, I don't know, but we're not as distinguished as we used to be. We don't take pride as much, except for our middle class blacks, of course. They dress presentable or whatever that means. I don't agree with it because I don't like how they dress either. I like my hoodie. But the women, we know how they dress. So the point I'm trying to make is, don't start with what your enemy can do better. Start with what you can do better. Cornelius Edwards, $10 super chat. Thank you. Diana Elmore, thank you. Appreciate you. But start with yourself first, man. Think to yourself, did we do as much as we could to make sure that the children have a bright future? Are we putting as much effort into our children as we should? Are we investing in community centers so kids can get off the streets? Are we investing our time for the kids that do come to the community centers and get off these streets? Um, but we got to just hold each other accountable. People hold me accountable all the time. I've made a lot of mistakes. I'm supposed to be a leader. People hold me accountable all the time. And I admit I've been guilty of not acting like a leader at times. But I love that people hold me accountable to this high standard. And I think we should all hold each other to a higher standard. And that'll just change uh, a lot of things. A lot of things. Um, Scott Adams and myself talked about mitigating some of the problems with the police, how to act during a police stop, how to deal with police. My biggest problem with black folks and police is we talk too much. We talk way too much to the police. They pull you over and you're arguing. Your arguments are for the court. You argue in court. When you argue on the street, you might not make it to court. I saw a video the other day of a woman being snatched out of a car. And I don't remember if I saw anything prior or what led up to that. But the police definitely manhandled her. And I don't want to say that there aren't times where police don't manhandle us out of nowhere. But we need to know how to, as Scott Adams say, practice persuasion. There's a lot of things we can do to put these cops at ease. Now, people say when white cops view a black man, they view somebody that's dangerous. Okay, let's run with that thought for a moment. If you know for a fact that a white cop views you as dangerous, wouldn't it be in your best interest to present yourself as harmless as possible? Wouldn't that make sense? And then when we do the whole all cops are bad thing, it never holds the cops that are bad accountable. We need to focus on these cases. When we look at the cases that were handled by Crump and the crook Sean King and the rest of them, those cops are still on the beat. They're still on the force. We failed at incarcerating cops who have abused us because we chose to blame all cops. Now we got to get better at using these courts to our advantage. The courts work if you know how to work them. Connor Mack says, put your own house in order before setting out to change the world. Jordan Peterson. DJ's Raw Uncut Truth. Not one celebrity brought up reparations. We ain't gonna talk about reparations now. It's another conversation. But I just want y'all to know that when you get pulled over by police, that's not the court system. You're dealing with another human being who's under high stress. He don't know if he's going back to his family or not that day. He's taking a risk every time he puts that uniform on. And he's just high strung. He's very, tense. So whatever you got to do to alleviate that tension is in your best interest. But one thing you never want to do is argue with a cop. Half of them ain't got much sense to begin with. You can't argue with somebody that ain't got much sense. I've dealt with a lot of cops, and the majority of them I've spoken to seem very low IQ. They don't seem like thinking individuals. Probably because that's probably why they became cops, because they don't have the mind to occupy any other occupation. So they had to resort to, for example, you got people in the hood that have no choice. What do they resort to? The military. Same thing happens with police. People don't know what to do. They like, I need to find a job. I'll go be a cop, right? So you usually have low intellectual people that become cops. The high intellectual people become detectives and move up the ladder and so forth. But these cops that are beating the street are usually low IQ people. Don't argue with low IQ people. Hand them your ID, follow the direction. Uh, if you can record the stop, record the stop. Take note of everything. Fight it in court. And if you're good at it, you might come away with $1 million. You might get a come up. I'm waiting for a cop to do something wrong to me so I can get my come up. Somebody said you are a prisoner behind enemy lines. So what is logical to make a home? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Somebody said cops are low IQ by design. I'd have to agree. I'd have to agree. But I'm gonna sign off soon. So the moral of the story here is um, take yourself into consideration first. Um, don't if you say that we are in a system of white supremacy, this is a system of white supremacy. Why would you allow white people to make the policy for the police? Why would you allow them to do that? Don't let so-called white supremacists or whatever y'all call them, don't let them put pen to paper, because with pen to paper is going to become more oppression for your ass. Um, Asidaho, he said, "Can you talk about local community politics and what the issues are? Appreciate the education." I mean, that's such a broad topic. I don't like. Where do you want me to go on that? It's a very broad topic. Local community politics. Um, B Weezy Bird, thank you. He said a friend of mine said UK police can't be too smart. Yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, that's where I'm at with it. Thank you for watching. I appreciate y'all. Um, subscribe, hit the like button. Hotep's been told you're gonna be on this Thursday, Uncle Hotep, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Love and Marriage, Wednesday, 9:30 p.m. Eastern time with Wendy O. And Friday, I'll be talking to Rollo Tomasi, the masculinity red pill guru. I'll be talking to him at 7 p.m. Eastern time, right here. So stick around, subscribe, and I appreciate y'all. Peace.